Callum Hudson-Odoi may be released by Chelsea on a free. But is this good news or bad news for Nottingham Forest? Welcome to your latest transfer news. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Whatever time of day you're watching this, hope you're having a fantastic day. And welcome to your latest Nottingham Forest transfer news. And there is a lot to go through today. Coming up in today's video, we'll be talking about the reasons behind why Hudson-Odoi may be released for free. We'll be talking about another free CDM that may be coming to Nottingham Forest. And we'll be talking about a Brazilian wizard who has been linked. Bring those Brazilians in, I say. And on top of that, welcome back to the legend that is Stephen Reid. We'll cover all that off today. Before we get into it all, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new. And if you would like this local heroes plaque with our beloved local heroes, that's Viv Anderson, Woodcock, and Gary Birtles, make sure you go and click on the link down below because it is a very unique and very limited edition plaque. So make sure you go get yours if you want it. Let's jump into the news and let's talk and start with Callum Hudson-Odoi. Okay, so this story is a bit of a weird one and has had a couple of twists of late. We brought you a couple of weeks ago that Forest were interested in the Chelsea winger. And the price quoted would have been around 10 to 15 million to get his signature over the line. However, Callum is on 120k currently, and it looks like that price tag on wages has been putting off a lot of clubs, especially with his injury record and the risk that he would bring. I mean, could you imagine him at the medical staff of Forest? They'd have a field day. However, what's developed today is that Chelsea, because they've sold all these crappers to the likes of Arsenal, to the likes of Manchester United, etc., I'm very worried about financial fair play as things stand. And offloading a few more players off their books will actually make more sense to them, which makes them less really fussed about getting a transfer fee for some of these players. And in that list includes Callum Hudson-Odoi. Because he's on 120k, and still under contract for one more year with Chelsea, they are apparently willing, if you believe the reports today, to terminate his contract and to pay him off. Why? Because Hudson-Odoi probably still wants the same amount in wages. And therefore, if a club was going to spend over 100k a week on him, adding a 10 to 15 million pound transfer fee to it makes it a lot more unattractive. So by removing the option of the 10 to 15 million pounds, it actually makes it a sweeter deal for whoever's interested. Now, with Forest having had an interest with him pretty much all summer so far, and now the removal of this transfer fee, it definitely makes it a more attractive deal. The problem that comes with it is that it will attract more flies to the you-know-what. So I can see now Forest will not be the only club interested in Callum Hudson-Odoi. They weren't initially, but this now becomes a much more attractive deal for a lot more clubs. And this only really works in favour of Callum Hudson-Odoi, as it could turn into a wages war in terms of what they will offer him, and he may end up going to the highest bidder. So, is it worth it? Is it a better deal? Yes, it is, as long as it doesn't get stupid with the wages. He is not a 120k a week player at all. Not with his injury record, not with his lack of games in the Premier League as of late with Chelsea. But would I take him for that price deal? Yeah, probably. Honestly, I'm still not that convinced by him. If I'm being straight with you guys, I just worry about the injury issue with him. Now, again, this is going to be the whole Steve Cooper under England 17 scenario that everyone keeps talking about. I think there's a few Forest fans out there who would just like to buy that whole under 17s team. I mean, Foden was in there, so why not? But it just does come with its risks. But the risk element gets severely reduced when you actually take out that transfer fee from Chelsea. So, is this one? I'm on the fence, guys. I'm on the fence. I'll take him, but I'm not convinced he's good enough. But as a free, it becomes very, very low risk in my opinion. How do you guys feel about it? And would you take him at the City Ground, especially now he's a free? I know a lot of you are huge fans of his, but I'm still skeptical. Get your thoughts in. Before we move on to the Brazilian link to Nottingham Forest, let's take a minute and celebrate Forest's best signing of the summer so far. And that's Steven Reid coming back to the City ground as a first team coach. And this really did put a smile on my face yesterday. Here at FFTV, the whole of last season, we were scrutinizing how much of a hole he had left and how it hadn't been filled by the likes of Tatey and Reid. I'm not saying they did a bad job. I'm just saying Steven Reid, I feel, and a lot of you guys, especially Ant the Hat, I'm sure he's still doing backflips right now, really do get excited about this one. Because let's not forget his background. The way he came into Forest, he was under the Houghton regime. And when Houghton went, he took over for that Huddersfield match and he changed the formation and we actually got our first win. 2-0, I believe it was, if memory serves me right, against Huddersfield. And then Cooper kept him on as his second in command. And I do believe he was the yin to Cooper's yang, because what you saw and what we've seen so much this season is players talking about how nice and soft Cooper is. And I firmly believe that Steven Reid was that enforcer behind the scenes, was the guy who made sure that people stayed in line and in check. And I think that's been missing from the backroom staff last season. And I'm very happy that he is back. Now, on top of that, he was really good at tactics. He was behind a lot of our set pieces, the designs of them, etc. He was he's got a real good football mind. And I'm really excited to see him back. However, there's always a however. How is he going to fare in the Premier League? And that's going to be the question that needs to be answered. And can he demand that respect from this player base, which will be completely different to what he had when we were in the Championship? He will need to get to know a lot of these players. There's probably only a handful left that have worked with him previously, and he's going to need to stamp his authority very quickly. But I feel he'll be able to do that with no problems whatsoever. And let's hope come the end of this season coming up that the cigars and the cans will be back out as he's celebrating something special at the end of the season. But from me, it's a massive piece of good news. And I would go as far as to say our best signing of the summer so far, and may actually be our best signing come the end of the summer window so far. But what do you guys think? And Ant the Hat, I'm looking forward to seeing your comments down below. I hope you've sobered up, but get your thoughts in the comments. All right, let's move on to a striker link, and a striker link that actually finally gets me quite excited. It's one we brought to you before, but now the rumors are strengthening up, and it is Pedro from Flamengo, and he is good. I like him. I like a lot of what I've seen of him. 26 years old. That's the interesting thing here. The question always does need to be asked when someone's gone past that 21 to 23-year-old mark from the Brazilian league. Are they really that good? Because it tends to be in the Brazilian league that once a player hits that age, they're shipped across to Europe if they have that potential and the future ahead of them to make it in the big time. And he's been at Flamengo now at 26 years old. And therefore, that question does need to be asked. However, when you look and judge him on what he's done on the pitch, he's really good. Really good. Like 40 odd goals and something like 87 appearances. But what impresses me the most about him is his link-up play. He seems to be aware of those players around him, when to shoot at the right time, when to play a ball into the channel at the right time, when to square the ball across. He's definitely got that eye and the understanding of what's going on around him. And to be honest, it's a trait you see in a lot of quality Brazilians. And for me, with the whole Brazilian theme that we've had over the last 6 to 12 months, I'm all up for him, man. You just keep bringing those Brazilians in, Marinacas. It will please me. I'm sure it will please the fan base. He's also very good in the air, scores quite a few goals from crosses. But does that work with Nottingham Forest, as we are probably, I don't know what the stats are, but based on what I've seen last season, one of the lowest crossing teams in the Premier League, where I can only remember 2 or 3 goals where we've crossed it in, especially from a non-dead ball situation. But maybe bringing Pedro in will change our style of play and we'll see a few balls being crossed in. And his finishing, he's got a real crack on that right foot. He can power it into the net. He's got a deft touch around the penalty box, can dink it around the keeper. He can, he's got the full package. And that's evident in the fact that he actually was named in the Brazilian squad that went to Qatar for the World Cup last year. He's actually had 6 appearances for Brazil and scored once for them. So overall, I'm very, very excited by this one if there is any legs in it. And the fee is going to be in and around the 25 to 26 million euro mark. He's probably worth about 20 million, but I believe there are a couple of other clubs interested in him. And the fee that Flamengo are looking for would probably be in and around that 25 mil euros, which is what, about 22, 21 million pounds. So not that expensive for a player who's Brazilian, who's in the Brazilian national team, who has an eye for goal, but it's his link-up play. He can play with his back to goal as well. That's what I really like about him. And it's, as I mentioned, that vision really stands out to me. Now, predominantly, he tends to drift out to the left-hand side more so than central or to the right. And that actually would help Forest, because as I keep bleating and moaning on about, we are very one-dimensional down that right-hand side. And we need a presence on the left-hand side of the pitch that would, further give us some more dimensions to our games. Now, I'm not saying he plays out on the left, but his movement tends to be in and out to the left-hand side. But would that come with its own problems? If Forest is so used to playing down this right-hand channel, could he find himself quite isolated in that left flank? We don't know. We will have to see. But for me, this one, I'm very, very interested in, and I would love to see him signed up. Let me know your thoughts on him. 26 mil for a striker who can finish, who knows where the back of the net is, who's got goals to his name, who's Brazilian. Would you take him or not? Get your thoughts in the comments down below. All right, let's move on to another free agent link, and that's Roberto Gagliardini. The ex-Inter player, ex-Atalanta player, has now been released as a free transfer from the Italian Giants and has been linked to Nottingham Forest. And again, this would be, I guess you could say, the Shelvey replacement. He's a deep-lying CDM-style player. 29 years old, or about to turn 29. This one's I don't know. It smells a bit freebie, bring him in, no cost. I get that side of it. But is he good enough for the Premier League? He's starting to come towards the twilight of his career. I know loads of you are going to say, oh, you're so 30th, but he's not. He's in his 20s, late 20s. And I'm just not convinced he's the right CDM for me. With the likes of Tyler Adams potentially available, with the likes of Amrabat available as well, this to me would be the sloppy seconds or thirds. I wouldn't be against him coming in, but he doesn't really excite me as a player. And the Italian league, to be honest, is quite boring, and his style of play would be quite boring. Dare I say there would be fears for me of a bit of a Freuler style player, but actually playing in the right position. That's probably how I would describe him. So I'm not a huge fan of this one. But what is clear is that Forest are looking in the right positions. They're looking at CDMs. They're looking at left wingers. They're looking at strikers. And they're looking at centre-backs. It's pretty much every position on the pitch, I guess. But what's even more abundantly clear is that the financial restrictions in terms of how much we have to spend are obvious, because they are looking for some decent deals. The likes of, as we mentioned, if Callum Hudson-Odoi becomes free, Roberto here being free, a couple of mil. Sace is still very heavily linked to Nottingham Forest. There's still talks that he wants to move. I still don't want him. Now, he is way past his peak at 33-year-old, the Moroccan centre-back. But on this one, honestly, guys, I can't get too excited about it. It's not a Pedro for me. A Pedro does excite me. This one just doesn't. And I want Tyler Adams still, or I'd rather take Calvin Phillips on loan from Man City. I think that's a deal that potentially could be struck. This one just, I can't see him working out. But who knows? I may be wrong. Maybe there's a few of you guys who are massive fans of him. Let me know in the comments down below. Remember, it is a free deal. So again, I will say the whole no risk scenario on him. But I think there's better fish in the pond. The Scarpa story to the Turkish league and Besiktas is still not going away. And there is talks that a loan move has been tabled for him, with an option to buy come the end of the season. And that is on Marinakis' table currently to review. And would he consider it? I sincerely hope no. In fact, I'd go as far as to say, if this deal were to happen, or any deal involving Scarpa leaving the City ground, I would be fuming, man. Because there is no way we have seen anywhere near, not even 2% of how good he is on the pitch. And I don't care what people have said about him. I don't care these people that are coming out and saying, oh, the pace of the Premier League is too quick for him. He can't play in the style that Steve Cooper's looking to play in. All of that for me is complete BS. When you have a player of his quality, you should try and play the style that suits him, which will allow you to get the best out of him and in turn get the best results for your team. So for me, Scarpa, Marinakis, Cooper, whoever's watching, please do not get rid of him. You have not given him enough of a chance to prove himself. I don't think he even needs to prove himself. What he's done historically at Palmeiras should be enough proof in the pudding that he is a player, and a player we should be looking, I think, at starting. Now, bear in mind, I take you back to the Palmeiras fans who said between Danilo and Scarpinha, they would still rather have Scarpinha back because of what he brought on the pitch. Danilo, for them, would have been the long-term project, definitely going to turn out into a baller, as we said he would here on FFTV. But Scarpa, man, he's got to be kept because there is quality in him and people are writing him off way too soon.
Shelvey in a wrap, please.
Okay, let's move on to a funny story. And speaking of players that have been written off, John Joe Shelvey, who decided to have a threesome date with him, Lingard and Wood, with some random girl that got invited back to his house. Now, what a team that is, eh? Wood, Lingard, and Shelvey. I wonder who was passing the balls and who was putting them away. I don't know. But what we do know is that Shelvey's got a damn ego on him because he sat down and decided to put on YouTube and search for Shelvey and put on his highlights reel from Newcastle. Obviously, he couldn't put his highlights reel on from Nottingham Forest because that wouldn't have even made a 2-second clip on YouTube. What you should have done, Shelvey, is put our video on from you the other week talking about what you did at the Old Vol. And maybe then you could have explained it to those around you. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. We'll put a little card up there for you. But Shelvey clearly is just settled in his house, happy to take his wages. And we do understand and we do know on good authority that Shelvey should be moved out from Nottingham Forest. But this story or this saga, this Shelvey saga, is just dragging on. I've seen no links linking him to any other clubs. And I think Forest could potentially end up with another Arteta here. Someone who's quite happy to sit on his wages. He's not even turning up for training and things like that towards the back end of last season. And he's just going to sit there and happily take his money or get fined or whatever's going to happen in there. And I can't see many clubs being that interested in him, especially for his wages, something like 65 to 75k a week. I mean, you can understand why he wouldn't move. But if you go and watch the video we did, if you haven't seen it already, you would understand why Forest need to get rid of him, because he's an absolute joke of a man. Now, even on the pitch, he wasn't that impressive. Had 10 good minutes against Fulham, absolutely messed up against giving that penalty away against Everton, that stupid pass against Villa. He's an absolute idiot of a player. And I think the fan base is quite unanimous in the fact that they would like to see Shelvey gone. But for me, it's not about what he did on the pitch. It's what he did off the pitch. And that's why he needs to be moved on. But the ego is still there. It's one of the dumbest stories I've ever heard. And one of the dumbest ego trips I've ever seen. Who sits there and watches their own highlights reel? Maybe do it on your own, mate. But bringing in a crowd into it? What the hell are Lingard and Wood doing around there? Anyway, Lingard should be on his way to the MLS or something. And Wood? No comments. Get your thoughts in on this Shelvey story. I'd love to see what you guys think to why he was doing this. And what was a random girl doing being invited back to his house? Let me know. All right, so that brings you up to date on all your latest Nottingham Forest transfer news and news. There are a few other stories, but let's not make this video too long. We'll bring those to you well, in the next one, I guess. Please don't forget, if you've enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new here. Go check out the local Heroes plaque and get yourself a special edition copy, which will have personalized as well with your name. So make sure you go check that out. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Come on, you Reds.